Welcome to Everyday Counseling, a podcast about understanding emotional patterns as they show up in everyday life. Most people think conflict begins when voices rise. It doesn't. Conflict usually begins quietly, internally, in a split second when interpretation shifts. You might recognize this moment. Someone says something simple. A partner replies with, fine. A sibling makes a comment in passing. A friend does not respond to a message for hours. A colleague changes tone in a meeting. Nothing dramatic has happened, but something moves inside you. The dictionary definition of conflict is a serious disagreement or argument. That definition describes the visible stage, not the beginning. The beginning is perception. Carl Rogers once said, "What is most personal is most universal." In conflict, what feels intensely personal starts with something small and ambiguous. A look, a pause, a slight change in tone. And in that moment, meaning gets assigned. You might think they are annoyed with me, they do not respect me, I'm being dismissed, I'm not being heard. The shift happens quickly, often before you are aware of it. John Gottman, who once studied conflict in long-term relationships for decades, describes how criticism and defensiveness emerges early in disagreement. But before either of those appear outwardly, there is interpretation. The mind fills in the gap. That internal meaning changes your posture, your facial expression, your tone, your next sentence. The other person senses that change. They may not know what triggered it, but they feel it. Now the atmosphere shifts. Consider a simple exchange at home. One person says, "Did you remember to call them?" On the surface, it's a question. Internally, it might land as accusation. The response tightens. "Of course I did." That tone carries something. The other person hears defensiveness and responds to that, not to the original question. Conflict has now begun, even though no one raised their voice. The same thing happens between siblings. A joke is made, it feels slightly pointed. Instead of asking what was meant, a quick retort follows. Now both are reacting to the perceived intention rather than the words. With friends, silence can be interpreted as distance. A delayed reply becomes proof of something. The reaction might be withdrawal or confrontation. The friend responds to that shift. At work, a short email can be read as disapproval. The reply becomes more formal, more guarded. The tone changes, the interaction cools. Conflict begins not with aggression, but with interpretation layered on ambiguity. Most early moments in disagreements are unclear. Humans dislike ambiguity, so we resolve it internally. We decide what it means. Once meaning is assigned, emotion follows. And once emotion rises, behavior adjusts. The key here is not to prevent interpretation. That would be impossible. It is to notice how quickly we move from observation to conclusion. Someone says, "fine," we hear dismissal. Someone pauses, we hear disapproval. Someone forgets something, we hear lack of care. The speed of that internal leap determines the direction of the interaction. When interpretation hardens into certainty, flexibility drops. Now every response from the other person is filtered through that meaning. And they, sensing the shift, begin reacting to the reaction. This is how small moments grow. Not because people intend conflict, but because both are responding to meanings that were never clarified. In the next episode, we'll move from how conflict begins to why it escalates. Why once this internal shift has happened, conversations often intensify before anyone realizes what is unfolding.